The arena floated high above a crimson alien world, wide enough to hold thousands and silent in a way that felt heavy and unforgiving. Tier upon tier of seats curved upward, filled with representatives from dozens of advanced alien civilizations. Their bodies varied in shape, size, and color, but their expressions shared the same emotion: amusement. At the center of the arena, under a bright white beam of energy, stood a single object placed on a raised platform. It was an old human sword. Its blade was dull, its surface scratched by age, and its design looked painfully simple compared to the glowing alien weapons surrounding it. To the aliens, it was nothing more than a relic from a forgotten, primitive species. Laughter echoed across the arena, sharp and cruel. Alien voices overlapped as they mocked the sword openly. Some compared it to farming tools, others called it ceremonial junk. A tall, insect-like alien ambassador stepped forward, his voice amplified through the arena's translators. He spoke of humanity as if it were a failed experiment, a species that had survived only because stronger races had allowed it. According to him, humans had no place among the galactic powers. Their weapons were outdated, their bodies fragile, and their history irrelevant. Each word was meant to humiliate. On the lower platform, a small group of humans stood in silence. They wore simple uniforms, plain and unadorned, very different from the elaborate armor of the alien delegates. None of them spoke. They had heard this kind of mockery before. Yet today felt worse, because the sword on display was not just metal. It was a symbol of everything humanity had endured. Wars, losses, near extinction. This blade carried the memory of it all. Still, the humans remained still, their faces calm but their eyes alert. Among them stood a boy, barely 13 years old. He was shorter than the others, with dark hair that fell messily across his forehead. His hands were clenched at his sides, and his gaze never left the sword. He did not look angry, nor afraid. Instead, there was a quiet focus in his eyes, as if he were listening to something no one else could hear. To the aliens, he was invisible. Just another insignificant human child brought along to witness his species' shame. The alien ambassador continued, gesturing toward the sword with one sharp limb. He challenged the humans to explain why such an object deserved space in a galactic forum. He demanded proof that humanity still held any power worth respecting. The crowd roared with laughter again, confident that no answer would come. The sword sat motionless, cold and silent, as if agreeing with their judgment. Then something changed. The boy took a single step forward. At first, no one noticed. The sound of alien laughter drowned out the soft movement of his boots against the platform, but the humans beside him did. One of them reached out as if to stop him, then hesitated. The boy's expression had not changed, yet there was a strange certainty in his posture. He was not acting on impulse. He was responding to a call. As he walked closer to the platform, a faint hum filled the air. It was subtle, almost imagined, but it spread outward like a ripple. The nearest aliens paused, their laughter fading into confused murmurs. The sword's surface caught the light differently now, as if something deep within it was stirring. The boy stopped just short of the platform and looked up at the blade, his face calm, his breathing steady. The alien ambassador scoffed and pointed at him. "A child," he said. This was humanity's answer, a boy who could not even lift proper armor. The crowd laughed again, louder than before, certain that this moment would become another example of human weakness recorded in galactic history. The boy raised his hand slowly. The arena fell silent. No one knew why the laughter stopped, only that it did. The air felt heavier, charged with something unfamiliar. The sword did not move, yet it no longer seemed lifeless. The boy's fingers hovered inches away from the hilt, and for a brief moment, time itself seemed to pause. Far above, the alien delegates watched, their confidence unshaken, but their instincts uneasy. They did not realize it yet, but the mockery they had begun was about to end. What stood before them was not a child challenging the galaxy. It was humanity waiting for its power to be remembered. The silence in the arena did not break right away. It stretched and pressed. Against every living being present, like an unseen weight, the alien delegates shifted in their seats. Unsettled by a feeling they could not name, the boy still stood before. The ancient sword, his hand lowered now, but his attention fixed entirely on the blade. The mocking confidence that had filled the arena moments earlier faded into uneasy curiosity. No one had expected the moment to pause like this, and no one understood why it had. The lead alien ambassador was the first to recover. He let out a sharp clicking sound that passed for laughter among his kind, and declared that the pause meant nothing. In his words, humans had always relied on theatrics rather than real power. He reminded the crowd that the boy was unarmed, untrained, and far too young to matter. His voice carried across the arena, reinforced by translation fields that stripped all warmth from his words. To the aliens, this was still entertainment. Nothing more than watching a weak species embarrass itself. The boy did not respond. He did not look at the ambassador or the crowd. Instead, his eyes remained locked on the sword, as if it were the only thing in the universe. His presence felt out of place, yet strangely grounded, like a calm center in a storm of judgment. Behind him, the human delegates stood rigid. They understood the danger of this moment. If the boy failed, the humiliation would be complete and permanent. Humanity would be reduced to a historical footnote across the stars. As the boy stepped closer to the platform, the air shifted again. It was subtle but undeniable. The energy shields lining the arena flickered for a fraction of a second. Several alien technicians noticed it and exchanged confused signals. The sword reflected the light. Above it in a way it had not before. Its worn surface seemed less dull, as if age itself was pulling back. The boy stopped only a few steps away and placed both feet firmly on the ground, as though preparing himself for something heavy. An alien historian seated among the delegates leaned forward, intrigued. Despite centuries of study, she had never seen a human artifact behave like this. Records described human weapons as crude, effective only through numbers and desperation. Yet the blade before her felt different. Old, yes, but not weak. There was intention in its design, restraint rather than excess. For the first time she wondered if the historical records had been incomplete. The ambassador gestured, sharply ordering the humans to explain this disruption. He demanded to know why the boy had approached the artifact, and whether this was some kind of failed ritual. The boy remained silent. His breathing was slow, controlled, almost practiced. He lifted his gaze briefly, not toward the aliens, but toward the empty space above the sword, as if acknowledging something unseen. The crowd grew restless. Some aliens began to vocalize irritation. Others leaned back, unimpressed, believing the moment was dragging on too long. They wanted spectacle or surrender, not silence. Then, without warning, the sword reacted. A low vibration passed through the platform. It was not loud, but it was deep, and it resonated through bone and metal alike. The sound was ancient, older than the arena, older than most of the civilizations present. The boy felt it instantly. His expression did not change, but his posture straightened. His hand rose again, this time with purpose. He did not rush. He did not hesitate. He moved as if he had done this before, even though he had not. The sword responded with another faint vibration, stronger this time. The lights above the platform dimmed slightly, forcing the arena to adjust. A wave of discomfort rolled through the alien delegates. Several of them activated personal shields on instinct. Others scanned the sword with advanced sensors, but the readings made no sense. The energy signature did not match any known power source. It was not mechanical or biological. It was something else entirely, something tied to the boy himself. The ambassador took a step back before realizing what he had done. His confidence cracked for the first time. He demanded security intervention, but the words caught in his throat as the vibration intensified. The sword was no longer just an object. It felt aware. The boy's fingers hovered near the hilt again, and the space between them seemed to pull inward, as if distance itself was bending behind The boy, one of the human delegates, whispered his name, not in warning, but in awe. The boy did not turn. He was listening now, fully listening to the quiet voice that had guided him forward from the start. The voice was not spoken, yet it carried weight and memory and loss. It carried humanity itself. The aliens did not yet understand what was happening, but instinct told them this moment had crossed a line. What they had dismissed as weakness was revealing depth. What they had mocked as primitive was beginning to awaken, and at the center of it all stood a 13-year-old human boy, calm, steady, and unafraid as the ancient sword prepared to answer his call. The vibration running through the platform grew stronger until it could no longer be ignored. It spread outward through the arena floor and climbed the towering walls like an unseen tide. The alien delegates felt it in different ways. Some sensed pressure behind their eyes. Others felt a dull ache in their limbs. The boy remained still at the center of it, all his breathing steady, his focus unbroken. The ancient sword no longer looked like a lifeless relic. It looked awake. A soft glow formed along the edge of the blade, not bright enough to blind, but deep enough to command attention. The light did not flicker or pulse like alien energy weapons. Instead, it flowed smoothly, as if the sword were remembering how to be what it once was. The boy slowly wrapped his fingers around the hilt. The moment his skin made contact, the vibration snapped into perfect harmony. The arena shields hummed in response, struggling to stabilize. Gasps rippled through the alien audience. Scanning devices failed one by one, unable to interpret the energy pattern spreading from the sword. It was not technological, and it was not magical by their standards. It carried something unfamiliar, intention bound to memory. The alien ambassador shouted orders, but his voice was drowned out by the rising resonance filling the air. The boy lifted the sword with ease, surprising even himself. The blade did not feel heavy. It felt balanced, as if it had been waiting specifically for him. As it rose, ancient markings etched into the metal began to glow, revealing symbols that had long been hidden beneath layers of time. The humans watching felt something stir inside them, pride, sorrow, and hope all at once. These were not just markings, they were records of survival, forged into steel. The floor beneath the platform cracked slightly, releasing a burst of light that shot upward like a pillar. The arena lights dimmed further, forced to compensate. The alien delegates leaned back, shielding their eyes not from brightness, but from the pressure of presence. The sword was not attacking, it was announcing itself, and it was doing so on human terms. The boy took a step forward, holding the sword upright. His face remained calm, but his eyes reflected the glow in symbols dancing along the blade. For a brief moment, the arena seemed to vanish, replaced by visions unfolding in the air around him. Flickers of human history appeared, battles fought with desperation, cities rebuilt from ash, people standing together against impossible odds. The visions were silent, but heavy with meaning. The aliens watched stunned as these images formed. They had studied humanity through data and records, never through memory or emotion. They saw humans standing when logic said they should fall. They saw retreat become resilience, loss become resolve. The sword was not showing conquest. It was showing endurance, and it was doing so without asking permission. The alien ambassador tried to regain control, accusing the humans of deploying an illegal projection weapon. But his words rang hollow. Even his own species sensed the truth. This was no trick. The energy flowing from the sword did not align with deception or dominance. It aligned with, was sharpened by hardship. The vibration reached a peak, then settled into a steady hum. The sword no longer glowed violently. Instead, it shone with controlled strength. The boy lowered the blade slightly, resting it at his side. He had not swung it. He had not attacked. Yet the message had been delivered louder than any strike. The human delegates felt the shift immediately. The fear that had clung to them since entering the arena loosened. They stood taller, shoulders squared, reminded of who they were and where they came from. The boy was no longer just a child in that moment. He was a bridge between past and future, carrying the weight of both without breaking. Across the arena, alien reactions varied. Some stared in awe, others in disbelief. a few in fear. Their understanding of power had been challenged. Power was not always about size or firepower. It could be quiet, contained, and patient, waiting centuries for the right moment and the right hand. The sword pulsed once more softly, as if satisfied. The boy looked down at it, sensing the connection settle into place. This was not ownership, it was partnership. The blade did not belong to him alone, it belonged to humanity, and through him it had chosen to speak. The mockery that had filled the arena earlier felt distant, now almost embarrassing. What stood before the galaxy was no longer a relic and no longer a joke. It was a reminder that humans did not fade easily. They endured, they adapted, and when the moment demanded it, they remembered who they were. The arena did not return to its former noise after the visions faded. Instead, a heavy, thoughtful silence settled over the gathered civilizations. The glowing symbols on the sword slowly dimmed, but they did not disappear. They remained etched with quiet certainty. As if waiting for the next question, the boy stood motionless, holding the blade at his side, neither threatening nor defensive. He was simply present, and that presence unsettled the aliens more than any weapon could have. Then the space around the sword shifted again, not with vibration this time, but with depth. The air thickened, and images returned clearer and more focused than before. These were not flashes or fragments. They were complete moments unfolding with purpose. The first showed a small human settlement on a ruined world, struggling against a dying sun. The people were thin, exhausted, and afraid, yet they worked together, repairing shelters and sharing what little they had. The sword hovered in the vision planted into the ground, not as a weapon, but as a marker of unity. Another vision followed, showing humans facing a vastly superior enemy. Their ships were outdated, their numbers small, yet they fought not for conquest, but for survival. Families stood behind them, trusting them with everything. They lost many, yet they did not surrender. The sword appeared again, raised not in triumph, but in defiance, marking the moment humans chose to stand rather than run. The aliens watched, unable to look away. This was not propaganda. There was no exaggeration or glory. The images showed loss, pain, and failure as clearly as courage and strength. It was history told honestly, without pride or shame. The boy did not control the visions. He was witnessing them alongside everyone else, learning as much as he was revealing. The alien historian who had earlier doubted the records felt a deep unease. The data she had studied for centuries now felt incomplete, stripped of context and meaning. Humanity had not advanced through raw power alone. They had advanced through persistence, through the ability to adapt and endure when logic suggested extinction was inevitable. The sword was not a symbol of violence. It was a record of choices made under impossible pressure. The boy shifted slightly, feeling the weight of the memories settle within him. His mind struggled to process centuries of human experience, yet the sword guided him, gently keeping him grounded. He understood now why it had responded to him. It was not his strength or skill that mattered. It was his willingness to listen and to carry the truth forward without fear. Another vision emerged, showing a child, much like him, standing among ruins, holding the same sword centuries earlier. The child was afraid yet determined, surrounded by elders who believed in the future despite everything they had lost. The boy in the arena felt a sudden tightness in his chest, recognizing the echo of responsibility passed from one generation to the next. This was not destiny imposed. It was trust given. The alien ambassador attempted to interrupt again, declaring that history did not equal power, but his voice faltered, even to his own ears. The crowd no longer reacted with laughter or agreement. They were too absorbed, too aware that what they were witnessing redefined the concept of strength. The sword was teaching without words, challenging assumptions built over millennia. As the final vision faded, the arena lighting slowly returned to normal. The sword no longer projected images, yet their impact remained etched in every mind present. The boy lowered his head, briefly acknowledging the weight of what had been shared. Then he looked up, meeting the gaze of the alien delegates for the first time. His expression held no anger, only quiet certainty. The humans behind him felt a profound shift. They were no longer representatives begging for recognition. They were witnesses to their own legacy, remembered and honored before the galaxy, the fear that had once defined. Their place in interstellar politics gave way to resolve across the arena. Conversations did not resume. Whispers passed between alien leaders, calculations, rewritten beliefs questioned. Some felt respect, others felt fear. A few felt both. The ancient sword rested calmly in the boy's hand, its purpose fulfilled for the moment. It had not demanded submission or victory. It had demanded understanding. In that silence, a truth settled over the galaxy. Humanity had never been weak. They had been patient. And patience, when paired with memory and will, could become a force no civilization should ever dismiss. The silence shattered without warning as a sharp alarm tone echoed through the arena. The sound cut through thought and reflection, dragging the gathered civilizations back into the present. The alien ambassador straightened his posture, his unease hardening into fear masked by authority. He declared the demonstration complete and ordered immediate containment. His words were not meant for debate. They were meant to regain control before the balance shifted further from hidden panels along the arena walls. Advanced security constructs sleek, towering machines powered by alien technology far beyond anything humans had brought with them. Their weapons hummed as they charged, targeting the boy and the sword with cold precision. The crowd reacted instantly. Some delegates recoiled, others leaned forward, eager to see whether the human artifact could truly stand against modern power. The human delegates tensed, ready to move, but they were too far away and too slow. The boy remained where he was. He felt the change in the air, the sudden spike of threat. The sword responded before his mind fully did. Its weight shifted in his grip, aligning itself as if anticipating what was coming. There was no fear in him, only a sharp clarity. The first energy bolt struck the platform, exploding in a flash of light and force. The shockwave rippled outward, throwing several alien spectators back in their seats. When the glare faded, the boy was still standing untouched. A faint barrier shimmered briefly around him, then vanished. The crowd erupted, not in laughter this time, but in shock. More attacks followed, beams and pulses of destructive power converging on a single point. The sword moved in the boy's hand, not through conscious technique, but through instinct. The blade cut through the air, tracing simple, precise arcs. Each motion redirected the attacks rather than stopping them. Energy dispersed harmlessly across the arena ceiling, leaving scorched patterns in its wake. The alien commanders shouted new orders, increasing output and adjusting frequencies. They could not understand how such an ancient object could interact with advanced weaponry so seamlessly. The sword did not overpower the attacks. It adapted to them, responding to intent rather than energy type. The boy moved only as much as necessary, his expression calm, focused entirely on maintaining balance. As the assault continued, the sword began to glow again, not violently, but with steady resolve. The symbols along its length pulsed in rhythm with the boy's heartbeat. The humans watching felt the same rhythm echo within themselves, drawing strength from the sight. Their fear transformed into fierce pride. This was not aggression. This was defense refined through generations of survival. An alien champion stepped forward, towering over the platform, clad in heavy armor designed for domination. He carried a weapon capable of shattering planetary shields. He announced himself as the end of the demonstration and advanced. Without hesitation, the ground trembled beneath his steps. The boy met his approach without retreat. He raised the sword and, for the first time, aimed it directly at an opponent. The blade hummed deeper, responding to the challenge. The champion fired, his weapon unleashing a focused blast meant to erase everything in its path. The boy swung once, clean and controlled. The blast split around the blade, dispersing into harmless light. The champion froze, disbelief flooding his posture. In a single, measured motion, the boy struck the ground before the champion. The impact released a shockwave that cracked armor and sent the massive alien crashing backward across the arena floor. The crowd gasped. The attack had not wounded or killed. It had stopped. The message was clear. Security forces halted mid-advance, unsure of their next command. The alien ambassador stared speechless, watching authority crumble in real time. The power displayed was undeniable yet restrained. The boy had not attacked out of rage or desire for dominance. He had responded only to threat, and had done so with control that none had expected. The sword's glow slowly faded as the danger passed. The boy lowered it once more, returning to a neutral stance. His breathing remained steady, though sweat beaded along his brow. The effort had been real, but he had not broken. The ancient blade had guided him, sharing the burden rather than demanding it. Across the arena, reactions fractured. Some aliens rose in respect, others retreated in fear. Whispers of recalculation spread through the crowd. What had begun as a display meant to humiliate humanity had become a confrontation that exposed the limits of alien arrogance. The attack had failed, but its consequences were only beginning. The line had been crossed, and the galaxy would never view humans the same way again. The arena no longer felt like a place of judgment. It felt like a turning point. The echoes of the failed attack still lingered in the air as alien security units slowly powered down one by one. They retreated, unsure and confused. The boy stood at the center, holding the ancient sword, not raised, not lowered, simply present. His calm was more unsettling than any show of force the aliens had expected. Chaos, fear, or triumph. Instead, they were met with control and restraint. The sword began to change again, not in brightness, but in presence. The glow softened and spread evenly along the blade like a quiet flame. The symbols no longer pulsed, they flowed as if alive, breathing with the boy. The connection between them deepened, and those watching could sense it. This was not a weapon being used. This was a legacy being carried. The boy closed his eyes for a brief moment, and when he opened them, his gaze was clear and steady. He did not look at the fallen champion or the retreating machines. He looked at the crowd, at the many civilizations watching in silence. The sword responded by releasing a low, steady hum that filled the arena. It was not a warning. It was a statement. Images returned once more, but this time they were different. They showed humans not in battle, but in rebuilding, in teaching, in exploring unknown stars together. They showed unity across differences and strength, drawn from cooperation. The message was simple and powerful. Humanity did not rise to dominate. Humanity rose to endure and to grow. The aliens felt it deeply. Those who had once believed power only came from conquest now faced a truth they had long ignored. Power could come from restraint, from memory, from choosing not to destroy even when able. The boy had defeated them without hatred, and that frightened them more than violence ever could. The alien ambassador finally stepped forward, but his voice lacked its earlier sharpness. He spoke slowly, choosing his words with care. He acknowledged the display and admitted that the galaxy had underestimated humanity. His admission rippled through the crowd like a shockwave. Some aliens protested quietly, others nodded in reluctant agreement. Behind the boy, the human delegates felt something lift from their shoulders. They were no longer standing on trial. They were standing as equals. The sword had not only defended them, it had reminded them of who they were and what they represented. The sword grew warm in the boy's hands, not heavy, but reassuring. He understood now that its greatest strength was not in battle, but in what it inspired. The blade did not seek enemies, it sought understanding. It amplified the human spirit when it was tested and grounded it when victory was within reach. Across the arena, alien leaders began recalculating alliances and futures. The balance of power had shifted, not through destruction, but through revelation. Humanity was no longer a footnote or a curiosity. It was a force shaped by experience and guided by will. The boy took a slow step back, and then another, returning to the human group. The sword dimmed further, resting as calmly as it had centuries ago, its purpose for this moment complete. The arena remained silent, not because of fear, but because every mind present was processing a truth that could not be undone. Humanity had not shouted its strength. It had shown it quietly, clearly, and without apology, and the galaxy had listened. The arena did not erupt into applause or protest when the boy returned to the human delegation. Instead, a deep, reflective stillness settled over the gathered civilizations. The kind of silence that follows understanding rather than shock. The ancient sword rested quietly in the boy's hands, no longer glowing, yet far from ordinary. It had completed its task and now waited as it always had. The alien ambassador stepped forward once more, but this time without guards or authority displays. His posture was different, his movements slower, more deliberate. He spoke not to challenge, but to acknowledge. He declared that the assembly would record this moment as a correction in galactic history. Humanity would no longer be classified as a minor or dependent species. The words carried weight and finality. Across the arena, reactions varied. Some alien leaders showed visible discomfort. Others appeared thoughtful. A few expressed open respect. None laughed. The mockery that had begun the gathering felt distant and foolish, now replaced by quiet recalibration of beliefs built over centuries. The human delegates stood taller than they had when they first arrived. There was no celebration in their expressions, only calm pride. The boy looked down at the sword, once more feeling the connection loosen gently like a hand releasing another after trust was established. He understood that this was not an ending but a beginning. As protocols resumed, the ancient sword was carefully documented, not as a weapon, but as a cultural artifact of immense significance. The aliens requested permission to study it, not to dismantle, but to understand. The humans agreed under one condition, that its meaning be respected as much as its power. The condition was accepted. Without debate, the boy was escorted from the arena, not as a subject but as a guest. Representatives from multiple civilizations watched him pass, their expressions unreadable but attentive. He felt no triumph, only relief and responsibility. The sword had chosen him to speak, not to rule. Later, aboard the human vessel, the boy stood alone looking out at the stars. The sword rested beside him, quiet and still. He thought about the memories it had shown him, the struggles, the losses, the endurance. He thought about the memories of the Bekome. Realized those memories were not just history, they were instructions. The galaxy would change after this. Alliances would shift and new conflicts might arise. But one truth was now undeniable. Humanity would no longer be ignored or underestimated. The sword had not forced that recognition, it had revealed it. Back on the alien world, the assembly recorded a final statement. A reminder to all future generations: never judge a civilization by its age or its weapons. True power often waits in silence until called by the right hand. The boy closed his eyes, feeling the hum of the ship beneath his feet. He was still 13, still human, still small in a vast universe. Yet he carried something timeless with him, not just the sword, but the understanding of what it meant to be human. As the stars stretched into motion and the ship set course for home, the ancient sword remained still, content to rest once more. Its message had been delivered, humanity had been seen, and the galaxy would never forget.